Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Camille Friend and Joel Harlow, the hair and makeup team leaders on Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. You guys, congratulations on the film. You both worked together, I know, on the first Black Panther film. So coming into the sequel, I guess, what were your first conversations like with Ryan about how you wanted to approach the new film?
Camille, do you want to go first or should I?
Go ahead, Joel. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously working on the new film, we had, a new civilization. We had the Telecanil that are rooted in the Mayan culture. So, in talking to Ryan and also our cultural director for the Mayan culture, we were focusing on staying true to the traditions of that culture, and that was our we had gone down that road on the first film, for Wakanda. So this one was more geared towards Mayan traditions and what have you.
Nice. And Camille, so for you, like, are you guys, how much research are you doing? Or like, where do you start in that process, I guess, like to kind of understand that culture?
Well, I think in the beginning, it was like reading the script and seeing what it was about and understanding how it was really about everybody in Wakanda. First of all, they're mourning Chadwick's death. So getting into that, and and for me, it was connecting the thread from the first one into the second one, and the sense of how would they look when it's 5 years different? How would everybody look? How would they be matured? And then also we introduced a lot of new characters in this movie. Everything from Ironheart Riri Williams also into the Telecanil. So it was something that we all looked at, and we looked at the comic books. We looked at like the Mayan culture, and like Joel said, we had an advisor. So really much wanting to be a cultural appropriate, like we did even how we took care in the first one, we did the same things in the second one in handling these characters.
Right. You mentioned that, like, I mean, the movie is massive, like beyond obviously emotional impact of having Chadwick's death and T'Challa's death in the film.
Right.
But you're just adding so many different characters and worlds, and it just is. And like you were just saying there, Camille, like the older characters we know are completely changed, right? Like obviously because of what they've
Right.
gone through in the time period. So when you have like Shuri, I felt like her entire look is different, right? She looks like more of like not a Disney princess, but she's much more princess like in the original, I feel like, and now is much more mature and like kind of grown up into, because of all the stuff that she's had to face. So can you talk about, like, I guess that Shuri first? I found her look incredible, and her hair and everything that you guys kind of do with her, it just makes her look so obviously like she's gone through a lot. And I guess like kind of that starts with her look. So how'd you guys kind of approach that?
Well, I'll say like the thing that we really talked about in the beginning, like with Ryan, was in West African culture, like when there's been a death in a mourning. So when you're in mourning, you will cut your hair off. So the idea behind it was, what happens if Shuri and Ramonda had cut their hair off? So how would we see them after that whole process happened? So that's where we landed on those looks for both the ladies. And then also, with Shuri, it was something of, you're seeing a woman who is coming of age. Like she's been thrust into a position that she didn't know what she was getting into. And she has to become a leader very much overnight. Where in the first movie, she was like the younger sister. She was joking and she was kidding. And you see somebody who, as a woman, who has really matured and stepped into her role.
And Joel, for you, how do you like reflect that in the makeup, I guess, too?
Yeah, she was much younger in the first film. Like Camille said, she is coming into her own. She's taking control of her situation, and within the context of this film, she goes from Shuri in mourning to a subtle change to the Black Panther look. Her look, her makeup look as the Black Panther. We added a couple of tattoos to her that you may not clock it, but it's there, and it's a nod to T'Challa's Black Panther helmets, the symbolism on the helmet. And that was one of the things that I think help to evolve her character. But yeah, I mean, she goes through a couple of different looks, starting as sort of a more mature version of what she was in the original film.
It's funny. I did clock the tattoos, and I actually was like, oh, I wonder if those are actual real tattoos on Letitia, because I was just like, I just didn't think that. I'm like, but I guess that's a testament to your work. That I'm like, it felt so realistic that it felt like something that she could be bringing to herself, right, to the screen. But no, there you go. That's really
Cool.
that's really cool.
That's great. You clocked it. That's great.
I did. I was like, oh, look at that. You mentioned like the new worlds and stuff in Talik, and obviously so much of this movie is underwater, and obviously I imagine that presents a big challenge for both hair and makeup. Can you guys talk about how you even went about where do you start on the tests and like kind of like figuring out what you can do so that it will stand up to shooting in thousands of gallons, millions of gallons, or whatever it was of water?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just submerging these characters, it's also them battling underwater. It's a lot of action underwater. So action, movement and water are the enemy of makeup. It's you're going to, anytime you're abrading something, you're going to be rubbing makeup off. I remember at the beginning when we were sort of trying to find the look for the skin color of the Camille when they're on the surface. I tried a bunch of different sort of blue tones and sort of combination spattered colors. And I presented something to Ryan, and he signed off on it. He liked it. And I was talking to Jeff Bauman afterwards, about the underwater stuff, and I had my model there with the blue makeup on. And he's like, "How does it hold up underwater?" I'm like, "Oh, it holds up great." And I sprayed it with water, and suddenly it started beading. I was like, "Oh, geez, I better find something that I can replicate this look in, but will hold up underwater," because obviously, I mean, a lot of films, when you end up shooting underwater stuff, it's dry for wet. This wasn't. This was wet for wet. And even when they're out of the water, they're still wet. It's like you don't come out of the water and you're suddenly dry. So they're and shooting in Atlanta, over the summer, ultimately into the winter, but over the summer it's hot and humid anyway. So yeah, it was a challenge, and then we had prosthetics on their neck. We had, these prosthetic gaskets on their faces and their necks as well. Jewelry pieces that we had made, ear tips. So it was a lot of challenge. I mean, sorry to ramble on this, but half your battle is the morning, right? Getting everybody ready. But the other half of the battle, and maybe the biggest half of the battle, is maintaining that throughout, what, a 12, 13, 14, 16-hour day, because you want it to look just as good in the morning as it does, in the evening when potentially you're doing close-ups.
Right.
Yes.
And Camille, how about you for the hair aspect of it as well? I imagine torture maybe, but that wasn't like.
Yeah, a little torture. But I think, the one thing you have to respect, and I think, Joel, we went through you have to respect the element of water. It's real, it's heavy, it moves, and it's alive. So you have to respect it. And with the hair, we went through the same process. It's like, first of all, you can't put anything in the hair because it clouds the water. So that's like, well, okay, how are we going to get this hair to stay? So, we went through a lot of tests and a lot of iterations to get to, which we almost made. It's almost like I call it a glue hairspray. So we actually took glue and we just really liquefied it so we could spray it. So just for the hair would stand up and it would still look great in the water, we actually sprayed the hair with the glue. That's the only way you're going to get it to stay after 12 hours of shooting. And, and I commend everybody, like all our people who worked on, the second units and the water units, of being there and maintaining that hair and make sure everything stayed pinned and stayed glued. All the people who were on the cleanup crews who came in at night and came in and cleaned up everybody, because the cleanup was, what, Joel, was it cleanup like 2 hours or 3 hours?
Yeah, at least.
The cleanup is huge. Like the cleanup is huge. Like, you would see people down there, they're stripped down, they're rubbing them down, getting the color off, we're taking the wig off. It's like, it's a whole big machine that people don't see in the background what it took to get the Camille through. But I think one thing I love, when we saw them underwater, it was absolutely magical. And it took my breath away to see it, because we don't never get to see it like what you actually see in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like watching it, it's like I've done interviews like with Jeff and like some of the visual effects people too, and it's like so much
Yeah.
of this movie is obviously like practical and in camera, and you're doing this stuff.
Yes.
Whereas like I think Joel, you were saying like a lot of times it could just be CGI or like dry for wet, and
Yeah.
it's like, and I think you really tell the difference here in this movie because when you're watching it, it just is like, oh wow, this looks great, and here's why, because all of you people are working so incredibly hard to make it look like it does, which is pretty pretty remarkable stuff. I
Yeah.
want. Yeah, no,
You-
go ahead.
After something's wet, say one of these gasket pieces comes off after it's wet, it's next to impossible to stick back on. So, water erodes mountains, and it's a force.
No, it is. It's a
Yeah.
force. It definitely, and I have a lot of respect for it because
Yeah.
I've never shot a movie where we were 100% wet, not dry for wet, where we were actually in the water. And
Yeah.
it's something I think we rose to the occasion. We learned what glues worked, which glues didn't, what product worked, and even different glues for different people's what their skin tone is, and even the texture in their skin to make the hair pieces stay on. So it all is a learning curve, but we got there.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
awesome. Can you guys, you obviously worked with Ryan on the first film, and here he's got so much to juggle writing the script and obviously dealing with the emotions of Chadwick's death, and then obviously telling this massive story like we're talking about here. Can you talk about like how you kind of collaborate with him as the director and like what that, how you kind of approach working with him, I guess?
I'll
Camille, yeah,
start
go
off
ahead.
with that.
Yeah.
For me, Ryan is, I call him, he's the hair director. So Ryan loves hair and he loves Black women's hair and he has his own ideas. And I'll be like, no, Ryan, I'm not doing that. And he'll be like, he's sending me pictures and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna try it. Like, but he's like the guy, he loves hair, he loves Black women. So he really gives me a lot of longitude and latitude for where we can go with it. And just always starting with him and starting with the conversation about what is the hair going to look like, and what we're going to do. And even like Mbaktu's hair, I'll say this: it is founded in Senegalese warriors. But the piece in the back, the shag piece, he sent me this picture, and I was like, Ryan, I remember doing that when I was first in salon. I said, I'm not doing that. He said, Camille, you got to try it. You got to try it. And the day that we tried it, I was like, oh, he was right. Like, so I have to give it to him. Like, it was right. It gave a total different look. And I hope, that we inspire, like the first one, we inspire people to go out and try these hairstyles.
Yeah, for sure. Joel, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, he's involved obviously in every aspect of this project and of the first project. But I also had sort of a lot of freedom, as long as the source material was, we were grounded in real traditions. I could kind of extrapolate, say the Mayan jewelry pieces on the flashback sequence of young Namor. And I would present things to Ryan, and he's not a director that will just sign off on something to get it off the checklist.
Yeah.
He's very, very meticulous when it comes to what he wants to see and what he doesn't want to see. So when I present something to him, sculpturally or makeup wise, that he does sign off on, it's that's more valuable because I know that he's really put thought into that. I mean, he's been living and breathing this film for years prior to us getting on set. I respect that. And delivering for him is a high watermark for me.
Yeah, for sure. And again,
I agree.
I think it comes through in the work, like the attention to detail that you guys are talking about here from him and you as well is just like very apparent in the film. We were talking about before about introducing characters and stuff. We mentioned Riri Williams. You have this, like, that's the first time people are seeing her in the MCU, and obviously she'll go on to be in her own show and probably other movies and all these things down the line. So I guess when you're launching a character like that, that's going to have so many ripples throughout the universe here. I guess where do you start, and like kind of like I'm sure with the comics and stuff, but like how did you guys think about that and your responsibility to the character? I guess Camille, do you want to go first, and then we could go to Joel?
I think, like, especially for Riri, like we really talked about, Ryan was really like, she's a college student. Remember when you're in college, you don't have a lot of money. And I was like, yeah, I remember, like, we did our own hair. So we wanted to do something where actually, that's why she ended up with the braids. So it's something that is carefree, it's easy, and we could change it up. And also, her helmet fit perfectly over those braids. And I do know that they were filming her TV show, and the braids have continued. So it was really important that we carry that through, and they actually carried it through to the TV show. So I was actually proud because I love the origin stories in Marvel because you do get a chance to put your stamp on it, and that's one thing like Joel and I did, I think, really well on Black Panther. We got to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And Joel, how about you for Riri?
Yeah, Riri, I don't want to say it was a simple makeup, but she is a college student, and so there's not a lot of glamour there. She's very goal oriented. She's science minded, so her focus isn't going to be on sort of glamorizing herself. I want to mention that AJ Crimson, who we unfortunately lost right after filming, did her makeup and did a wonderful job. But yeah, I mean, her character, I think if we had gone too far with it, it wouldn't have felt real. And that's the thing about the entire film, is it feels real. The characters that need to be glamorous are glamorous. The characters that need to feel more menacing feel that way. Everything feels real. That's grounded in reality because we pulled from real tradition and actual events.
Right.
Yeah.
The last one, and then kind of on the flip side of that, a character who was introduced previously that you guys have in this is Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Val. And I'm thinking, like, when I see her in the movies and shows, every time she looks slightly different. So I feel like, how did you guys like approach how she would look for Wakanda Forever here, and placing her in the timeline maybe versus where we've seen her previously and stuff, and kind of like a little bit about her look as well? Camille, you could go first.
Well, Julia she's a great collaborator. So at first thing, I just would start looking at pictures, and then I talked to her and I said, what did you like about the last time you were in this character? What you didn't like? So we just started tweaking little things to get it to what it ended up being. And she really loved her look in the movie. And plus, she's somebody who is going to be, her thread is going to be all through the MCU. So I think every movie she probably might have a little tweak and look a little different, but certain parts of her, you'll continue to see her look the same.
Right. And Joel?
Yeah, well, for me, she has her own makeup artist, so
okay,
she travels with somebody that I'm sure she's discussed what she wants to look like, with. So I mean that she was very nice, but I didn't really have much.
Right, that's fine. Yeah,
makeup.
No, that's good. And then I guess for you guys, like, I mean, you've done, obviously, like we said, like this film, Black Panther, other stuff here, these big projects, the MCU. Like, I mean, what do you love about working on this kind of canvas, I guess? Joel, you could go first.
Oh God. I mean, everything, Really, that's a hard question to answer because there's so many aspects to this that make it special for me. I mean, the way that the first film has touched so many people, and the way that this film continues to touch people, and just the emotional impact of this film, based on obviously real life events with losing Chadwick, but and translating that into the loss of T'Challa, in the film, it brings tears to my eyes, and there are very few films that you work on that really have the emotional heart of these two films, and to be a part of that, I mean, that's once in a lifetime, but now it's twice in a lifetime. So,
yeah.
I feel very fortunate.
Yeah.
Right.
And Camille, how about you?
I feel very much the same way as Joel. Like, to work for Marvel has been like, I think Wakanda Forever was my 7th Marvel movie. So it's been a great partnership. I love that, Marvel really gives you a lot of like leeway to be an artist, to be creative. And that's the part that I love. It's never like, oh, we can't do that. It's like, let's try it. Let's test it. Let's see. So it allows us to have our playground, and that's the part that we love. And like, I love collaborating with Joel. He has a great imagination. He has a great team, and anything you can think of, he'll be like, "Oh, we can do that." So that's what is great about collaborating with people like Joel. And also for me as a Black woman is, I think we started a movement where Black hair is beautiful. And you've seen so many beautiful movies that have come out that have displayed Black hair. And going into this, I think one thing that I love is that we've taken the Mayan culture and, into a Latin culture where people can look at this in the culture and see themselves and be happy to have real characters and people that they can look up to. So I think that's what the great thing, as Joel said, this movie has a heart and it has a soul and it beats, and that's what people connect to in this series.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think like you're saying too, like it's heartening to hear that, and you kind of see it in the movies, that you have so much leeway as artists here to create and given this grand scale that they're not just like, it's not like cookie cutter, like, which I think people maybe could think that it could easily be, right? Because when you're making something on this grand scale, maybe it's like that's what you would think the instinct is, but no, it's not. And that's like kind of, again, very apparent in the finished product. Camille Friend and Joel Harlow, the hair and makeup team from Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, incredible stuff. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.